Hey everyone, welcome to the GTM Secrets podcast. Everything go to market, analytics, sales, marketing, RevOps, you name it. We've probably had somebody on talking about it. Today, I'm very interested in the individual on Agnel DeCruz over at ZoomInfo. You have a very interesting background. I say that about a lot of guests, but you do have a very interesting background. Honeywell, ZoomInfo, etc. Tell us a little bit about yourself, man.
Stephen, firstly, great to be here. Thank you. A little bit about myself. So currently, I'm at ZoomInfo. I'm a principal here. I lead what we call data partnerships. The rest of the world calls it third-party data acquisition, but we'll get into why there's a difference in between, there's a difference in terminology. But yeah, like you said, I've been in the data space for I think the better part of a decade at the moment. I've been with large companies, I've been with startups, and a lot of my experience has been, I would say, using data to make better business decisions or to enable businesses, right? I think that's kind of the space that I've been in. So I don't want to get into a lot of detail, but at a high level, right? At ZoomInfo, data partnerships, and I've been in the data space for like the better part of a decade at the moment, Stevens. Yeah.
Love it. And no, I won't ask you secret sauce questions. And if I flirt too much with that, tell me.
Okay, sure.
That being said, I wanted to have you on. We were talking just before. I want to talk to you specifically because I don't think marketers look at data the right way at all. Mm-hmm. They look at it solely from the aspect of a funnel, how much traffic, how many MQLs, how many SQLs, yada, yada, yada. And I think marketers are really bad at asking better, more intelligent questions like, why is this traffic not converting? What does multi-touch attribution look like? All these different pieces. Mm-hmm. So before we get into that, though, you mentioned third-party acquisition. What does a day in the life look like for somebody like yourself?
Yeah, so it's probably three or four different things, Stephen. So one is internal interactions, right? So talking internally within the organization to kind of figure out where are there data gaps, right? Where within our offerings do we have gaps that we need to fill, and which of these can be filled using third-party data sets, right? Because the fact that it's called third-party data sets, there's also potentially first and second party that could be used to kind of fulfill these needs or fill these gaps. So one of my jobs is to kind of talk to people, talk to product managers, talk to data engineers, data scientists, right? So within the organization, figure out where are these gaps. The second is me being a data practitioner myself. I also go into the product, play around with things to see, okay, what is missing? Where can we improve from my own data lens, right? I think that is two. And then the third large part of my of my day is basically external interactions, right? So talking to potential partners or existing partners saying, hey, I'm seeing this gap. Do you think you can fill this gap, right? So that's one part of it. But also, I think on the external side, there's also conversations on what else are you doing as an organization? Because, the whole concept of unknown unknowns in the sense that sometimes we would never have known, had I not had this conversation, we would never have known that this specific data attribute even existed, right? So we wouldn't know that there was a problem till we actually had this conversation. So sometimes what I would do is have an open-ended conversation with a potential partner or an existing partner saying, okay, just tell me, what do you have, right? And then we can take it from there. Yeah, I think at a high level, it's basically internal conversations and external conversations. But of course, there's a lot of like in the data, swimming in the data and all of that. And then given the specific nature of my role, there's also talking to legal, talking to procurement, talking to compliance, right? So making sure that given we're a large organization, we are doing things the right way. So yeah, that's how I'd put it, Stephen.
Love it. I appreciate the context here. So and by the way, I could be asked this question just as much as you. I mean, you're familiar with what I do at Identity Matrix. Mm-hmm. Everyone and their mother is familiar with ZoomInfo. But and I know you have your own crawlers. I know that you source a lot of your own data. But on the third party side, you guys work with like, I think Airbnb, PayPal, etc., right? Very, very large companies. why don't companies like that go acquire their own data? Why are they using ZoomInfo instead of just going to the source of third-party data? And again, someone could ask me that just the same. We're both in the data aggregation business.
Yeah. So a very good question, Stephen. There's multiple ways of looking at this, right? Because one is we are data experts, right? We know data and we understand data better than someone who is an expert at selling credit cards, right? Or having a P2P lending platform. So we understand data. So when you want good data, you come to us because we're the experts in that. I think that's one. And two is the data that we give to our customers is not one source, right? So it's not that we're not like data paper pushers, right? I don't know if there's another term for this, but we're not the ones who take this data set and say, okay, here's the data set for $100,000, PayPal, here's the data set, $300,000. So that's not what we're doing. And that's the last thing we would do, right? So we have, let's say, dozens, maybe 100 different sources that we get data from. We merge them together. We make sense of it. We, run our own MDM stuff on the data to kind of clean it, to normalize it, right? Before we give it to a customer. So yes, customers can do all of this, but it's going to be a lot of effort. It's going to be a lot of time, and it would be almost building out an extremely large team and an expensive endeavor. That's my thinking, Steve. Because if they're trying to match what we do, it's not that they cannot, but it's a lot of effort. I think that's what it is.
There's a reason you're a multi-billion-dollar company. Fair enough. So how do you you're one of the biggest name brands out there, right? Most of the people that watch this are B2B marketers, go-to-market leaders, product marketing, you name it, right? When somebody wants to, let me ask it this way. Are your partnerships you reaching out to different sources? Are they reaching out to you? Like, how do you establish those partnerships in the first place?
Yeah, it's partly an art and partly a science, Stephen, in the sense that it's a bit of both, right? So I would I've built relationships across the data industry, so I kind of know who has what. I think that's one. But also, we may have discussed this at the start, but we're also very open to kind of new things, new ideas where folks reach out to us saying, hey, here's this new thing, can we talk, right? So I would say, Stephen, it's a bit of both, where there's there is there is a pull from our side, right, saying what do you have. There's also push from our potential partners, right, saying here's what we have, and let's talk about it. So there's both sides to it, Stephen.
Fair enough. Now, we were talking briefly about this before we hopped on. There's a lot of companies trying to eat your lunch. I mean, a lot, right?
Yep.
So, and let me preface this. I've used ZoomInfo, I've used Apollo, I've used Seamless, I've used almost all the databases out there. How do you guys compete at such a high level at a high price point when your competitors are trying to undercut you left and right? Now, I'm not insinuating they have the same data quality. Forget about their data. But how are you guys so successful when everyone is trying to eat your lunch?
Yeah. So we get this question a lot, Stephen, and it's a very, very good question. And it's a very valid question as well, right? So I'm not going to shy away from this question. So I'm going to talk about it in like, say, 2 or 3 different points. I think the first is I'm going to channel Henry Schuck, our CEO. I think one of the comments he made last year was that you buy cheap, you buy twice. And we're starting to see that in our data, in the sense that one of the highest percentages of areas where we're seeing growth is our rebound customers. Folks who left and then they realized that, okay, this is what we were missing, right? And we're coming back, right? I'm just going to go off on a slight tangent and I'll come back.
Please.
You probably have, as an analogy, Stephen, so you probably have a phone in your pocket that is more expensive than an alternative, right? So it could be either platform, right? It could be either platform, but there is still a reason why you buy a phone, why you have the phone that you're using at this point. And there are cheaper alternatives. So I think that's the way I think of ZoomInfo, irrespective of platform. You are willing to pay a premium, but there is something that the premium comes with. Now, you're going to challenge me saying, what is the premium that ZoomInfo comes with? And that's a fair question, right? So if you, and this is based on conversations with some of our, rebound customers, I think they say two things to us, right? I think the first is the data that we get from some of our competitors, and we acknowledge our competitors. I think they're great. We're glad that we play in the same space. We're glad that there are competitors because it keeps us on our toes. But the data that some of our customers get, or rebound customers get from our competitors, need more cleaning. So they need a couple of analysts. Sometimes they need data engineers, they need data scientists to kind of clean up the data before it is usable. So whatever customers may have saved by looking at the sticker price alone, they are forgetting latent costs, right? I think that is the first thing. The second is, and again, this was a comment that I got very recently, was when we compare and use other services as compared to ZoomInfo, our reps have to send more emails to get a hit, or our reps have to make a lot more calls to get a hit. So we kind of end up paying the same because the efficiency of the organization has reduced, right? So at ZoomInfo, we are increasing the efficiency of your organization. And this is not just marketing, because we have about 3,000 to 4,000 employees, of which there are hundreds of folks working in the data space alone. Their job is to clean up the data. And then even within that, there are two different aspects. One is on the actual folks writing code, right? There's data engineers, there's data scientists, and there's that group of folks. We also have something that we're very proud of, and not a lot of organizations have, is basically data researchers. So we have folks within the organization, dozens of them, whose only job is to manually research data to see whether it's right or wrong. So you can imagine we are taking away all of this effort from customers at scale, and then we're able to deliver that value to customers, Stephen. So that's why, to my point, that I will not shy away from this question, and I will address the question head on, because we get this and we acknowledge that sometimes there's a sticker shock, but a lot of our customers don't see the latent, a lot of folks that do this comparison don't see the latent hidden costs of jumping to a competitor.
No, that makes perfect sense. And as somebody who is in, I'll call it a tangential space, and I don't play at the PayPal level, I don't play at the Fortune 500 level in any way. If you have 7 phone numbers for one person from all your data sources, how the hell do you pick the right one? I definitely get that challenge, 100%. Or 18 emails, whatever, right? So, all right, that makes perfect sense. And I'm curious to see what some of the others do. Like Apollo tends to be more small and mid-market type companies. I'm sure they have enterprises using it. You're predominantly enterprise, at least from my perception. Yep. You're predominantly enterprise with a little bit of mid-market and SMB in there. So when you have these calls with your customers, whether they're return customers, new, whatever, what are some of the challenges that they face that they're trying to fix? And do they always know their challenges? And let me preface that. So I'm going to go back to a comment I made earlier, where I think marketers look at very superficial data, and part of it's just because they are required to drive a number of MQLs, SQLs, whatever, right? I don't think that marketing is always managed the right way. But then we look at these superficial metrics instead of looking at things like, what is this person's intent? What does the buyer journey look like? How are they interacting with my site? How can I make them feel all warm and fuzzy so they want to reach out? Those are some of the things that I think people are failing at. Or, you create an ABM list and it's like 50 random companies that don't have any intent. They make 0 sense, but you really want the logos, right? What are some of the common challenges they're coming to you with? And do they know their challenges, or are they just looking for options and then you have to guide them?
Yeah. So firstly, fantastic question. I'll probably answer this in two ways, Stephen. So one, I'll really address the challenges that I see, and I made some notes about that. But I'll also talk about how we kind of working with ZoomInfo helps you navigate those challenges better. I think the first that I see, Stephen, is there's a lack of empathy when you're talking GTM and data in general, right? So the way you're selling is just based on your own perspective. I have this very narrow focus, and this, in my opinion, is the best thing in the world. And it is also the best thing in the world for you, right? So I think there's a lack of empathy on who are our customers and who are their customers. So one of the things that I see is or at least my advice to folks would be that start to think about all of this from the perspective of your customer and their customers as well. Right. I think that's one. Two is the second one is data silos. So you did ask this question at the start saying, why can I not buy, one third-party provider or maybe 5 third-party providers and just use that? And, I can just replace all of you. So the problem here is data silos, and you're in the data space, so you've probably seen this a lot, is when you get data from disparate sources, you're going to see different data formats, different ways to merge, join, and all of that, right? So again, at ZoomInfo, we take that problem away for you, right? So we do the joining. But then again, I've seen this to be one of the other mistakes, ignoring customer feedback, right? Because you're probably a smaller organization, you have a lot of customers, you kind of ignore customer feedback, or a lot of the signal is lost in the noise, right? The mistake that I see folks making is a lack of personalization. So there is this, and I don't blame people for it, right? So at certain sizes, that's what you can do, but there's this push towards one size fits all, and it's great at some point, but after a certain point, one size does not fit all, right? You will need to start to personalize. And again, I'm just going to bring in the ZoomInfo angle of, I don't know if you've seen it yet, but if you've seen ZoomInfo's Copilot yet, but if not, you must, or at least get a demo. There are videos on our LinkedIn page, but you must take a look, where we've kind of personalized each of it to that particular, SDR, right? Or whoever's using it, right? So it's personalized to your account. Who are you going to talk to? You learn about the person, you learn a summary of previous conversations, you learn about the account you're going to interact with as well. So you get business context on what the account does as well, right? And so this is the next point is, I don't see it very often, but I do see it, is the I don't know if it's inability, but the unwillingness to eat your own dog food, right? So like if you have a service that helps your customers gain more customers, are you using it to gain more customers? And if you're not, then there's a problem, because you have to use it, you have to gain more customers, and if you're not able to use it, then your product's probably not working, right? So go on. Okay,
I want to go on a tangent for a second. We both have a specific competitor that we were talking about before this that de-anonymizes website traffic, proclaims that this inbound-led outbound model, drive traffic to your site, see who engages, how they engage, and target them. They literally do not do that themselves. And it drives me up a wall, completely hypocritical. Won't name names, but anyone in this space probably knows who I'm talking about. So yes, sir, I agree with you.
Yes. So I think that's one that we see, and I'm going to say that the fact that we at ZoomInfo, we work with thousands of customers, we've gotten feedback, we have the muscle to kind of incorporate feedback and make this better, makes the lives and jobs of our customers easy as well. I think that's the bottom line to this entire. What are the pain points you're seeing in the GTM data space, Stephen? So perspective.
You guys offer a lot of products. What is the main product or the top 3 main products that people use? Yes, you have a giant database, but you also have web form enrichment. You also have your Copilot. You just released de-anonymization, et cetera, et cetera. Like, what are the top, and intent? what are the top 2-3 things that people are finding the most interest in at this point?
So top 2 or 3. I think the top 2 that I can think of, one is Copilot. I think whoever's used it, they love it, right? Because it's basically, and again, real feedback, like our sales folks use it, and we've gotten feedback as well, is you've saved me 3 hours of work, right? So we're making folks, we're kind of, let's call it a productivity booster, right? So I think Copilot, folks seem to love it. And then we are kind of incorporating the de-anonymization piece into Copilot as well. So it'll come together, right? And that is something that folks are starting to really like, because sometimes you know about a visit, but you don't know the who, and this helps you understand the who as well, right? So this person reached out, then what can I know more about that person? Then Copilot helps you with that. And then you know whether that's the right person to reach to, or there's someone within that organization that you try to get an introduction. So there's so much that this helps you as a combination of de-anonymization and Copilot, Stephen. So those are the big 2.
You can tell me to shut up, but I am going to ask one question I find very interesting. What portion of web traffic, and I know it's going to be US only, just like all of us in the space, what portion of traffic do you de-anonymize, or are you allowed to say?
Oh, so I must be honest, I don't know, right? Okay. But I will, this is a good question, because I'm not a product manager, I kind of enable these teams and then they're on their own.
Sure.
So I honestly do not know, but this is a very good question, and I must go back and check. I mean, like, it's something I must know, to be very honest, Stephen. So yeah.
I looked. You guys don't have it on your landing page anywhere, so I am very curious. Again, you're more enterprise. I don't really look at ZoomInfo as a competitor. Frankly, in 5 years, I hope you guys buy me. Just throwing that out there in case you have any pull. But
so if Henry is listening, so yeah.
So you're at the enterprise level. I'm not working with Facebook, or Facebook's a bad example. I'm not working with Airbnb anytime soon, if ever, right? I'm more mid-market, SMB to mid-market. But with that, I'd be very curious to see what your de-anonymization rate is. I have found most people in the space are about 20-25%, give or take a little bit. But again, to your point, when you go by the source that gets you 20-25% and you want to do it internally, good luck cleaning the data. Again, take 2 of the best sources in the world, combine them, and they have completely different information. Which the hell is right? Yeah. I'm with you. So let me, one of my final questions, let's take a step back and talk about just you for a second. You've worked at startups. You were also an analytics guy over at Honeywell. Now you're a principal over at ZoomInfo. Is your background, first of all, is it on the tech side? Is it on I assume it's not the marketing side, but what's your background?
Yeah, so it's definitely not on the marketing side, Stephen. So in fact, I'm probably the worst marketer anyone would have, but okay. So this is a good question, in the sense that one of the best terms I would use for myself is data solution delivery. So think of it as partly tech and partly product management. Even within product management, I think my skill lies in the fact that I can build these relationships within organizations and with external organizations as well. So I have that skill. And then that coupled with, I would say, a deep understanding of data. I've written multiple blogs. I've been on a few podcasts like yours. I've also co-authored a book. So in the data space. So it's
Wait. Shameless plug. What's the book called?
I'll send you the link. It's not related to GTM data. It's
Fair
about
enough.
healthcare data, right? So I worked in the healthcare space for a while, and it was my understanding of that space. But I'll send you the link. I will do that. So I would say that my understanding of data and then my people skills is kind of what brings me here today, Stephen. So I think that's my background.
So I hope no one takes offense to this. I don't think you will. I have not met many data people that are people. Would you contribute that? Where I was going with this question is, would you attribute that or something else to, the fact that you're a principal at one of the leading data companies in the world? you went fast in your career. Is that because, unlike a lot of data folks, you are better at relationship building and dealing with people?
Yes, I would think so. I didn't think about it the way you put it, but now that you say it, it does make sense. I think in jest, I would say that I'm better than average at people skills, and I'm better than average at data skills, which is probably why I'm here. But on a more serious note, I didn't think of it from your perspective, but it does make sense, right? I mean, a lot of the data folks are they're very smart, way smarter than I am, but maybe a little rough on the people skills, and I think that's something that I was blessed with. And
It's
yeah,
no different than developers. My lead dev, he's a great people person, but he's like an anomaly. Almost anybody in STEM fields, it's just a different personality, right?
yeah,
Nothing wrong with it. Nothing. I wouldn't
they're
say good
different.
or bad. Yeah,
Yeah,
just different.
yeah, yeah.
Um, all right. My final question. You're talking to these sales leaders, these marketing leaders, etc. What is one thing that, if you could give them one tip on their data strategy, what would it be?
Hmm.
I know, hard question.
Yeah, this is a tough one, because if it is just one tip,
All right,
I
take
mean,
top couple. If you have
so
multiple.
on a lighter note, I would say use ZoomInfo, right? But on a more serious note, I think, mm, and I kind of touched on this at somewhere earlier, but I just want to make a very strong point about this: is stop thinking about solutions from your perspective, right? Saying here's what we do, and here's exactly what we will do, and start thinking about solutions and solving your customers' problems, right? So the moment you can start doing that, if you can ease the pain points of your customers, I think all of us would be very successful, instead of being very stubborn on with here's what we have, and like, you have to force fit my solution into your ecosystem, rather than, okay, how can we solve your problem, and then let's try to solve it, right? And here's how we can solve your problem. So, and maybe be consultative, right? So I think that's probably what I'd say. So
Again, I'll go back and elaborate on my point earlier about, marketers are, I think, looking, and I am a marketer, but to be clear, I think we often look at superficial metrics and it's brute force. How do I drive more leads? Just get them in already, right?
yeah,
I think if people take the approach of how can I give them an experience where they want to opt in, where they want to go see a demo, etc., that's negated. Yes, there are some great CX marketers and so forth, but I think especially at the small and mid-market levels, it's definitely how can we drive more as opposed to pull them in, push first pull, right?
yeah,
So
absolutely.
I love it. Everyone says LinkedIn, Agnel, but what's the best place for people to reach you?
Yeah, definitely LinkedIn. I'm on X or Twitter, as some people still like to call it. It's just my first name is my Twitter handle, so it's not too complex. It's just Agnel. So definitely it would be LinkedIn or X/X, formerly known as Twitter. So yeah, I feel that'd probably be the best, Steve. So yeah,
Fair enough. Well, really appreciate having you on, man. Very different conversation than what I usually have. They're all interesting, but you're the first like real data guy.
thank you.
So
Yep.
again, thank you so much, man.
Thanks a lot, Stephen. Great to be here, and it was more fun than I expected. So great conversation. Thank you, and I really wish you, the organization, and the podcast the best.
Thank you.
Cool.